Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Chief Administrative Officer Hernandez, and members of the public. My name is Yereli Lopez,
And I'm David Castro.
and I'm here to present a policy analysis on the impact of policies on poisoned candy.
On the day of Halloween in 2020, 1,000 children ages 4 through 17 were poisoned by the candy in the city of Halloween Town. Of those 1,000 children, 150 were aged 4 through 10. The top three poison candies were Sour Patches, Kit Kats, and Snickers. Among those places that type of building, those children were aged 4 through 10, and they got poisoned from buildings such as one-story houses, apartment complex, condos, mansion-style homes. Among those 150 poisoned children aged 4 through 10, 80% were hospitalized and 20% were dead. The chart represents
A nonprofit organization that is a stakeholder and supports the policy set in place regarding poison candy would be the National Children Love Candy Organization. This organization aims to keep children's health a priority, including during Halloween. Members of this organization would be in support of the policy set in place in Halloween Town because of their efforts in reducing the amount of poison candy that gets distributed every year to children. Their main concern is that candy stores in Halloween Town are selling candy to individuals that have distributed poison candy in the past.
Candy for a Cause is another nonprofit organization that is a key stakeholder but opposes the policy set in place. It makes candy inside specialized wrapping so that it makes it difficult to poison candy without noticing that it has been opened before. Policy alternatives. Current policy is the Poison Candy Act of 2019. The Poison Candy Act of 2019 made it crime to distribute candy with substance that is capable of causing illness or deaths when digested. In Halloween Town, the fines for distributing poison candy on Halloween are $200 for the first offense and $400 and a year of jail time for the second offense. Depending on the criminal history or level of offense, offenders could be prosecuted up to 10 years in prison. The current budget is $3 million, and the income from fines and penalties is $500,000.
On policy implementing stricter guidelines for poison candy distribution would be the Poison Candy Homeowner Loss Act. This act penalizes any individual who distributes poison candy on Halloween and causes the victim death by giving them life in prison. Additionally, offenders will get their property foreclosed. With this policy, an anticipated outcome that can occur in Halloween Town is less deaths among children due to poison candy and more foreclosures. Budget with this policy implementation would have a budget of $10 million. To implement this policy alternative, it would take a year to go into effect.
In contrast, policy implementation more lenient guidelines for poison candy would be the Candy Substance Act. This act would only allow marijuana to be in candy distributed in Halloween Town on Halloween. With this policy, an anticipated outcome would be less lethal drugs would be in the candy because marijuana would be allowed. For this policy alternative to go in effect, it would take a year, and the budget would be $1 million.
For the Poison Candy Act of 2019, effectiveness would moderate because fines and penalties gradually increase and more offenses are done. With the same act, liberty and freedom criteria would be moderate because offenders have several chances before they are penalized with harsher sentences. The social acceptability of this act is again moderate because anticipated outcomes of this act include less hospitalizations, but not zero.
The Poison Candy Homeowner Loss Act, its effectiveness would be high because penalties are so high, and people are less likely to commit the act with the possibility of losing their home. With that liberty freedom criteria, it would be low because there's harsher punishment on the first offense, and the social acceptability criteria, it would be high because positioning through candy is not something that is socially accepted among the city of Halloween Town.
Lastly, the Candy Substance Act would be low in effectiveness because this act gives more leniency to put a substance into the candy that is distributed. Contradicting the low effectiveness, this act would be high in liberty and freedom because of the leniency and acceptance of putting marijuana into the candy. Low social acceptance would come with this act because not many residents of Halloween Town agree with marijuana being put into the candy in the first place.
The cases